George Soros just got the boot. His evil liberal empire against Trump just came crashing down. This is what you might all call poetic justice. The extreme far-left globalist that is the Hungarian-born George Soros is now being forced to move his offices from Hungary to Germany due to its inability to protect its staff. According to a press release issued by the company today, because of this, the Open Society Foundations will be moving their entire staff and international operations from Budapest to Berlin, Germany. According to the president of the Open Society Foundations, Patrick Gaspard, because of the way the Hungarian government denigrates and misrepresents in order to forward their repression of a civil society for the sake of political gain, this move is necessary. This all stemmed from the recently re-elected Viktor Orban, who won a strong mandate by campaigning on the issue of immigration, stopping Muslim refugees from entering the nation, and a Stop Soros package. Orban launched a nationwide television and billboard advertising campaign in July where he rightly accuses Soros of devising Europe's refugee crisis. But of course, the globalist friends of Orban's efforts to condemn the 87-year-old investor said posters were not dissimilar to the anti-Semitic imagery of the 1930s, which portrayed Jews as political manipulators. And Soros should know, since it's rumored he worked with the Nazis against the Jews during the Holocaust. Open Society Foundations has complained that they have been targeted by secret wiretapping efforts by the government, not unlike the efforts used against candidate Donald Trump by the Soros bought and paid for Obama administration. Isn't it great to see a nation like Hungary doing the right thing? As a Jew myself, I can tell you Soros is no friend of the Jewish people. And for a man like him to call out Orban's tactics as being anti-Semitic is an insult to the 6 million Jews who lost their lives in Nazi Germany. Here is more on Soros via the Daily Wire. 1. Soros is a convicted felon. Soros was convicted of insider trading in France in 2002, a court determining that he had acted with the knowledge that the bank might be a takeover target, according to Bloomberg. The court ordered Soros to pay €2.2 million, or $2.9 million, in restitution. 2. Soros comes from an anti-Semitic Jewish family and was a Nazi collaborator. My mother was quite anti-Semitic, and ashamed of being Jewish, Soros said in an interview with The New Yorker. Given the culture in which one lived, being Jewish was a clear-cut stigma, disadvantage, a handicap, and, therefore, there was always the desire to transcend it, to escape it. Soros later said in the interview that he did not feel any remorse about confiscating property from Jews as a teenager. I don't deny the Jews their right to a national existence, but I don't want to be part of it, Soros said. Soros is a rabid anti-Israel advocate, and has compared Israel to the Nazis. 3. Soros basically funds the leftist mainstream media. The Media Research Center chronicled back in 2011 how Soros has ties to over 30 news outlets in the mainstream media. For instance, at the time of the MRC report, the Soros-funded ProPublica's Journalism Advisory Board featured the following journalists: Jill Abramson, new executive editor of the New York Times; Carrie Smith, the senior vice president for editorial quality of ABC News; Cynthia A. Tucker, the editor of the editorial page of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Abramson, who has since been fired from the Times, is now a columnist for The Guardian. Tucker is no longer the editor at the AJC, but is a syndicated columnist and commentator. The following members of the media have also been on the boards or advisory boards of Soros groups as well: Christiane Amanpour, anchor of ABC's Sunday morning political affairs program, This Week with Christiane Amanpour. A reliable lefty, she has called tax cuts giveaways, the Tea Party extreme, and Obama very Reagan-esque. Matt Thompson, editorial product manager at National Public Radio and an adjunct faculty member at the Prominent Pointer Institute. Ben Sherwood, ABC News president and former Good Morning America executive producer. Kathleen Hall Jamieson, author and the Walter H. Annenberg Dean of the Annenberg School for Communication of the University of Pennsylvania. Michelle Norris, host of NPR's news magazine All Things Considered, public radio's longest-running national program. Phil Bronstein, Director of Content Development and Editor-at-Large for Hearst Newspapers. David Boardman, The Seattle Times. Len Downey, former executive editor of The Washington Post, now VP. George Osterkamp, CBS News producer. Amanpour is now the CNN's chief international correspondent and host of Amanpour. Thompson is now the deputy editor of The Atlantic. Norris now works for the Race Card Project. Bronstein has since left Hearst for a bigger role at Soros-funded Center for Investigative Reporting, and Boardman is now the dean of the School of Media and Communication at Temple University. Additionally, the CRI lists The Washington Post, Salon, CNN and ABC News as media partners. Soros also funds the Clinton Allied Media Matters organization, which numerous media outlets, including the Los Angeles Times and the New York Times, have used for content. 4. Soros created a shadow party of leftist organizations that basically have control of the Democrat Party. According to Discover the Networks, the McCain-Feingold law allowed for organizations called 527 committees, defined as independent groups that could produce issue-oriented ads, voter education initiatives, get out the vote drives, and other party-building activities that moved the Democrat Party further to the left. Some of these organizations included MoveOn.org and Center for American Progress. 5. Soros is bankrolling Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton. Investors Business Daily reports that Soros gave $9 million to pro-Clinton super PACs and was able to dictate State Department policy in Albania. Soros also recently had dinner with Clinton's vice president, Tim Kaine. 6. Soros is connected with Donald Trump. Soros funded the building of Trump International Hotel and Tower in Chicago to the tune $160 million. In fact, the two had a cozy relationship at one point, according to the Daily Beast. In 2011, Trump even told conservatives to forget Soros, leave him alone, he's got enough problems. While Soros is committed to defeating Trump, he did help prop up Ohio Governor John Kasich, RO, in the primary, siphoning off votes from Senator Ted Cruz and paving the way for Trump to win. It's not outside of the realm of possibility that Soros, believing his old buddy Trump wouldn't stand a chance against Clinton, made sure that he would be the nominee over Cruz. 7. Soros Open Society Foundation says that Europe's refugee crisis should be viewed as the new normal. A leaked memo from OSF states the following, via the Daily Caller. Accepting the current crisis as the new normal and moving beyond the need to react. Observing our partners as they respond and adjust to the new reality in light of the crisis in Europe and the Mediterranean, we see little attention given to long-term planning or fundamentally new approaches to advocacy. The conclusion also stresses the need to fight back against growing intolerance toward migrants. For more on why the West shouldn't be accepting Syrian refugees, read this. 8. Soros funds Black Lives Matter groups. According to a Washington Times analysis of the Soros-funded OSF's tax returns, the organization gave at least $33 million to BLM groups in 1 year. The Daily Beast attempted to cover for Soros, but their story was based on OSF simply denying they fund BLM and trying to claim that it would be impossible to track the $33 million. 9. Soros funding has a tendency to benefit himself. The Washington Free Beacon reports. While Soros has increased his multi-million-dollar investments in both U.S. and foreign companies that extract shale oil and gas, the Obama administration has championed natural gas as a less carbon-intensive bridge fuel toward a clean energy future. The administration's proposal to offer incentives to companies that use trucks powered by natural gas would benefit Westport Innovations, a company that converts diesel engines for natural gas use and is partially owned by Soros hedge fund. Soros' political advocacy also tends to blend with his investments. He proposed in 2009 that developed countries create a green fund to combat climate change in developing countries by directing billions from the International Monetary Fund, IMF, toward forestry, land use, and agricultural projects. Soros Fund controls more than a $200 million stake in Adecoagro, a Luxembourg-based company that owns hundreds of thousands of acres of farmland in South America and would benefit from the IMF cash infusion.